Greetings all. Nice to get back on YouTube and chat about some interesting topics that I think have really been in the media coverage recently. The first is the mass shootings that we're currently enduring, which are completely and totally out of control and seem to be escalating in terms of frequency and extent of damage done. I'm not going to get into a discussion of, in particular, reasonable gun controls, which I think I've covered in the past. And the public at large is very much in favor of reasonable gun controls. And, nobody's talking about eliminating ownership of guns or anything, but clearly background checks and reasonable interventions in terms of waiting periods or certification or licensure or training. It's a little bit, I think, unreasonable to allow somebody to just go in with a driver's license, get just a quick background check over the phone and walk out with a firearm without a little bit more extensive investigation, making sure they know how to safely operate a firearm. And they're not in the midst of depression or have been engaging in any kind of social media activity would suggest they put the public at large or themselves at risk. But the topic I really wanted to cover on the mass shootings is the insane media coverage. We watch literally 24/7 coverage once an event takes place. Literally no other news is covered, and that there is literally real-time intervention with no new information. Desperate attempts to get interviews and collect as much information as possible. And I would like to draw the analogy, and I think that's just a terrible idea. I think it literally, just an opinion, worsens and exacerbates the publicity and notoriety and encourages others who may be considering it to get their 15 minutes of fame. So what I would strongly suggest, and again, is, get all the experts off. The experts every 15 minutes don't need to be consulted. They know nothing more than the public at large. Let the local officials do their job. So just like suicide, and I was about to draw this analogy, we found that when people, especially celebrities, commit suicide, and it is the media covers it extensively, there is a dramatic or significant increase in suicides of people who might have been on the fence. And so now the media, which I think is completely appropriate, always provide a warning at the end and a notification at the end of all these stories on suicide and celebrity suicide, saying if you have issues, if you need help, these are the numbers to call to get help. And at least there's, at a minimum, an effort to recognize that the media coverage itself is part of the problem. I would suggest strongly that that is exactly the situation in a lot of these mass shootings and the dramatic increase in them recently in early 2023, where they seem to just become a routine event. And I would strongly suggest that the media, all forms, whether it be internet-based or print or but especially 7/24 coverage should minimize their coverage, literally give updates every 5 minutes out of every hour, 3 minutes out of every hour, and otherwise resume normal coverage. Again, I think a much more balanced and reasonable presentation of that information is going to clearly be less likely to inflame and or encourage others to engage in these kinds of mass shootings and this kind of clearly deranged behavior. So I put that out over Twitter. I'd love your feedback and comments on that. I'd like to hear what the media has to say about it. But I just think 24/7 coverage and real-time coverage that doesn't even recognize that there's other news going on in the world, wars, political news, anything, does a disservice to our society as a whole in terms of creating undue notoriety and creating some kind of a focus on this as a society, which I think may detrimentally affect others who are considering it. The second topic that I'd just like to, again, extremely briefly cover, as just to be provocative and get some feedback, is there's been just a tremendous amount of coverage of cops abusing their authority, And while I think overwhelmingly law enforcement is in it for the right thing, and they're doing the right thing, and they're serving our community, there are a handful of bad characters out there who really are providing a huge disservice. They literally use their powers in a tyrannical way and somehow think they're above the law. One of the reasons they think they're above the law, and this is the topic I'd like to explore with you, is qualified immunity. Qualified immunity means that basically law enforcement and police in particular are immune from civil liability for their actions, essentially. And I think that qualified immunity needs to go away. I mean, the only way to really correct a problem of law enforcement abuse and is really to create both accountability and consequences. And with qualified immunity, that accountability becomes extremely minimal. And of course, when there's no accountability, then there are no consequences. So I'm here to just suggest that people should reflect on qualified immunity and maybe be working a little harder to get some statutory changes, because qualified immunity is the judicial / common law principle, and get that eliminated. I think, the fact, and we've moved just way forward in terms of the abuses, but the body cams are just a godsend and clearly have, eliminated just so much, misstatements and lies and just, frank perjury of law enforcement who have engaged in an illegal search or an illegal, detainment. And so that is just a huge step forward. But, if we're going to have body cams and all that evidence being admissible to protect the public at large from that minority of law enforcement who do a great disservice to the community, I think qualified immunity needs to go away. Anyway, would love your thoughts and insights on both these topics, and have a great day. Be safe. Bye-bye.